My chat couldn't hear me.
For real? Why did you bring
You're picking the bear to trigger you, Manar.
Go ahead, Adam.
So my question for Ryan, given everything you said, it would seem as if you're implying that this that like the quote unquote gender war thing is a top-down initiative being astroturfed by oligarchs in some way to distract people from real class consciousness. So the question from that would be, what is the evidence that any of this is actually happening, that this is a top-down thing?
I'd say it's not a grassroots thing. Like, and my evidence is if you go outside and talk to people, they're not talking about limiting women's right to vote. They're talking about things that are going on in their lives right now. They're not talking about like no. If you have any friends who are men or women, really, we're not having conversations outside of panels about like taking away women's rights to vote. And I mean, maybe a lot of Republicans are, but
I am.
Normal people aren't.
Yeah,
So,
I think can I quickly add to
hold on.
Oh,
hold on. Let Adam finish.
What I want to know is, do you have any actual evidence that this is top down, other than people you know aren't talking about it? Because that's not evidence. People who I know generally don't talk about Austrian economics, but that doesn't mean that Austrian economics is a top down thing.
Sure. So what I'm really getting at is that, I mean, whether or not there are specific people who are pushing it, I think those people are benefiting from it, right? Like Elon and Trump right now, they would love for us to talk about feminism and fighting each other and gender and transgender people being in bathrooms instead of talking about the fact that they're robbing us fucking blind and like taking away the power of the people and consolidating it into their own hands.
To be clear, that's a massive concession. You're saying you don't actually know whether or not this is a top-down thing. You're just asserting.
I'm saying
you're just asserting that it benefits.
That is my main thing. Yeah.
I can point to it. I can point to it. By the way,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think Trump uses what's known as wedge issues, which are issues that don't affect the general public. And therefore, these issues are inorganically creating outrage among the far right. One example was the trans people in bathroom stuff. Like, if you already look at it, there's laws against doing illegal stuff in bathrooms already, and trans people are a minority. So you're literally getting people afraid of someone that you're not even likely to encounter in that way to begin with.
Totally agree. So where is Trump doing a top-down push? Using the wedge issue of feminism or gender wars as we understand it. Can you show me an example of that?
If the narrative comes from Trump, it's by definition from the top, right?
Yes. So I'm asking you, where is it coming from Trump?
Which I don't think Trump.
I've literally never heard him say any of these talking points.
Does he originate any of these talking points at all? Do you don't think some of the things that he says?
I
don't think he does.
Panel, please. This is like my fifth time asking you. If you have an interjection or something, and if it's just a one-liner, save it. Nobody cares what you're about to say in terms of a one-liner. Just hold your breath, wait until they're done, and then you can respond. Okay, Jake, are you all set up now?
Yes, I think we're all good. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep.
All right, great. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the gender wars and and the patriarchy. Just give me that again, Sarah.
So kind of the idea of, are these gender wars, the concept of feminism, the patriarchy, even we can dive into like the Christianity, like all of these different things, but particularly the gender wars, where is it coming from? Because I look at it like I'm out in the normal world. I'm at work. I'm with friends. I'm doing all this other stuff, and nobody talks about feminism or patriarchy or we need to shut this down or do this. Like nobody's talking about it.
That's
but then I come on.
That's such
Jesus fucking Christ! Did you just interrupt me?
That's a privileged mindset.
But then I go to YouTube. And, in this little corner, it's just feminism everywhere, so on and so forth. Obviously, we're hosting debates about it. So my question is, are these gender wars even real, or is this some kind of propaganda drop down, or what is the crisis at hand, and why is it a crisis?
Yes, Ryan is proof that they are real.
Go ahead, Jay.
Obviously, there is a gender war, and we've had 100 years of feminist conditioning. And until that's untangled, there's going to continue to be a gender war. But the only reason that there is a gender war is because men have allowed women to have these so-called rights that you guys all talk about. And if men collectively decided tomorrow to get rid of these rights, then there wouldn't be a gender war because there's nothing that they could do about it.
When you say we, you don't mean men, right? Because I would never align with you on that. Like most men would not align with you on that. So I don't think that when you say we, you're not who you're talking about there.
Don't you think that's an overly simplistic binary?
Who am I talking to? Am I talking to one person or am I talking to a few people?
No,
Ryan,
there's not as many people as you are.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan came through the clearest.
Ryan, yeah. So obviously, something about you told me that you wouldn't align with me. So I'm not surprised by that. But I'm just talking about hypothetically, if men decided tomorrow to take away the rights of women, there's nothing that they could do about it. You do agree with that, right?
Not really. And I think men and women fought for men fought alongside women to get.
That's not what I asked, Ryan. That's not what I asked.
Yeah.
What I asked was, if men collectively decided tomorrow to take away the rights from women, could they do so?
Like if all men were gonna do an act, like we're gonna put all men in one side of a room and all women on the other side, and they're gonna battle it out. Is that what you're asking?
It's a pretty simple question, Ryan. If men decided tomorrow to take women's rights away, could they do it?
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
So
we could make it illegal for women to vote, and then people would resist it, right? Like I would resist it. I think most men would resist it. Yeah.
The things that have happened throughout the course of history, which is men not giving women these rights until basically we had a bunch of technology that begets feminism, where women can have air-conditioned offices and can get little lanyards for their working. Now, all of a sudden, women do have rights. So
I think it was until there were mechanisms by which more people could influence the government. That the more people that have been able to influence the government, the more likely people's human rights have been to be represented. And with time, that's exactly what happened in the United States. So women got the right to vote as a lot more people got a political voice and were expressing it. So.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree that as women entered more into politics and more into the workplace, etc., they had more say. But the question is, if tomorrow that wasn't the case anymore, could men just take away women's rights? And the question ultimately boils down to, if men do not consent, then can there be liberation?
If men do not consent, rights could be taken away from women. Yes, this could happen. It did happen. Roe v. Wade was overturned. Women's right to bodily autonomy was taken away in a lot of states. So yes, this can happen, and it could happen here, where women's right to vote could also be taken away, but you would be met with resistance. We would resist you.
Yeah, you would resist us. Okay.
Yes, and we would win.
So. You would win. Well, that's not really happened throughout the course of human history, and it's not really happening all around the world.
I'm pretty sure women can vote right now.
We see many examples of that everywhere. But would you agree with me that in order to replace the liberal world that we live in, we need to actually have people? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, people have babies. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Sure. And obviously you agree that the birth rate is in precipitous decline at the moment in the Western world, throughout the entire Western world?
It's lower than, but it's. I mean, I don't think I buy into the that we're going extinct or something. I'm not sure about that.
Well, mathematically, you just look at it, and that's exactly what happens. As soon as you go below replacement, it starts to fall precipitously. There's an exponential curve that goes up with population. We've seen that, and we've seen that in other countries around the world, and then also goes down as well in a similar fashion. We're seeing that at the moment throughout the entire Western world. And also places like Japan and South Korea. I mean, South Korea, I think, is 0.7. And this is an extinction level event for countries like that. And the United States is on a similar path.
So if we want more people to have babies, we should probably incentivize them to have babies.
Yeah, which we're not doing. And feminism is one of the leading causes that doesn't incentivize people to have babies.
I feel like feminism is the movement that's gotten us things like maternal and paternity leave in most countries that we don't have here.
Yeah, how's that going?
And those are things that make people more likely to want to have babies, because then they can actually take time off work to take care of those babies. But
sure,
you don't
how's
want
that going for you, Ryan?
So you're actually disincentivizing births.
Sure, Ryan, how's that going for them? How's maternity leave going in incentivizing birth rate?
It's great. I think people are more likely to have a baby if they think they can take maternal leave. Yeah.
Sure, Ryan, is the birth rate going up or is it going down, Ryan?
It depends on a lot of factors. It's not.
Is the birth rate going up or is it going down, Ryan? Pretty simple question.
It might be a simple question. I don't know. I assume it's going down.
Yeah, well, if you looked into it,
but we don't have maternity leave.
Most definitely going down. So
we don't have enforced maternity leave in the United States, right? Or paternity leave. We don't have this like other countries do.
Sure. So feminism not working.
Maybe
obviously.
We should try it.
So would you agree that feminism promotes the idea that women should offset having children in their 20s and should have children more in their 30s and should focus on a career more and should focus on being more independent?
I think feminism resists the the imposition of those things on women. So women are allowed to go to work, or they can stay home and have babies, and they're absolutely allowed to have babies. And they're like certain. I don't have any problems with housewives. It's not illegal to be a housewife. Like women, some women want to do.
Never said it was illegal, but would you say that?
But you want to make it illegal? You would.
Hold on,
you would prefer that it was illegal, right?
No. Let's answer the questions first. So would you say that feminism disincentivizes people to stay at home and have children, and it incentivizes women to go out into the workforce and into higher education?
Into higher education? Yeah, that's a good thing. I like higher education for people.
Okay, so now we get back to the birth rate question. If women are offsetting having children into their 30s, the average age that women graduate these days is 24, and then they have to go into their career and they have to work away to eventually become a dermatologist by the time that they're 36 or whatever that is, then would you say that that is a contributing factor to the downfall of the birth rate? At least would you acknowledge it's a contributing factor?
Could, but again, like there are better solutions, like than resisting the whole, like, quote unquote resisting feminism is like an
What's the better solution?
Providing incentives for people to have children, like child tax credits, and by having maternity leave and paternity leave and all these things that actually do help people and help children.
Okay. And how's that going for the birth rate, Ryan?
That would probably help the birth rate. In the United States, we don't have those things.
Not going so good. It's not going so good.
Okay, we don't have those things
so
here.
Ryan,
I don't know
if you would agree, because you agree with me here, that where's he gone?
I switched it. Somebody paid for the next one. He wants you to debate Mel now. Don't worry, Mel will pick right back up.
I was halfway through.
I can give you both of them if you want. You want
Coder and
Give me them both. Give me them both.
Coder and I are part of the leftist hive mind, so I can easily carry off.
Cool. But I want to continue the conversation that I was having with Ryan, because we were halfway through. So, Ryan, you've agreed with me that feminism essentially disincentivizes people to have children, right? Feminism is not what you were saying in terms of like paid maternity leave and all these sorts of things. It hasn't actually produced that. So that's an abstraction. That's just an idea.
Because of resistance.
But feminism has produced a bunch of people who don't want to have children and who would rather go to Cancun on a holiday twice a year and would rather just be independent boss babes. So this actually does lower the birth rate. Hold on a second, I'm not finished. So this actually does lower the birth rate. And if the birth rate is lowered, and if we actually can't replace our population, which is happening in reality, if this is the case, then what's the solution to that if we need to have a sustainable labor market, which we do? What's the solution to that, Ryan?
Incentivizing people to have children through things like child tax credits and maternity leave and paternity leave and other ways, like things that prevent childhood poverty, which is a big fear that many women have before if they're considering getting pregnant. So these would be moves that would help people have children and make it more appealing to women who would then be able to do that while also pursuing careers that they also want to do because they're also people, right?
Jake, do you know a lot of feminists?
Where's that happening? I don't know who this fox is who keeps talking, but I'm having a conversation with Ryan. So Ryan,
I'm here too.
Where is that happening and where's it working?
That's happening in at least several countries. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know. But
okay, I can tell you where they are doing this. They're doing this in places like Holland, and they're doing this in places like Sweden, all these Nordic countries that you guys love to sort of like masturbate over on the left. So wherever this is happening, show me where it's increasing the birth rates. Demonstrate that for me.
I mean, we could dig into that specifically, but I mean, just at an
if you dig into it, you're going to find that's not.
Real quick, just all things else equal, do you think someone's more likely to have a child if they have access to maternity leave or if they don't have access to maternity leave?
I don't think it makes a difference, and I think that the evidence actually bears that out. It'll incentivize them to go into their career. It'll incentivize them to have a career because they think they have a safety net, and then they'll end up freezing their eggs and trying to have babies when they're 35. But all we have to look at is the data and the statistics on that. We have countries like the Nordic countries who have these sort of social programs, and it's actually not working. The birth rates are going down precipitously. And you know what they're doing in those countries, Ryan? What do you think they're doing to actually replace their labor market? What do you think is actually happening there? If you had to look at it and just be objective about it, don't be ideological. What they're doing is they're bringing in the third world. They're bringing in a bunch of people from the Arab world and from the African world to replace their labor market. And do you know what these people do, Ryan? They make sweet, sweet love 7-8 times. 7-8 times to have children. They have lots and lots of big babies. They have lots and lots of families.
Hell yeah, we need people, right? That's what you're just crying about.
Yes, exactly right. But you know what the problem is with this, Ryan? Is that these people are not so feminist, unfortunately. No, they're not like you, my friend. They're a lot more like me than they are like you.
Yeah, but when they
feminists is like a first world
society, they become more like that. Like
is
Muslims
that happening
in
in
the United
England?
States are extremely liberalized.
Do you know what's happening over in Europe at the moment, Ryan? Do you know what's happening in England? They've got Sharia courts over in England.
There are some issues with immigration over there right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So in America, you guys have more immigration from the Latin world. So you have a lot of people from Mexico, etc. By the way, they're Catholic, so they're more patriarchal than you guys. But over in England, they've got a massive population of Muslims over there. And eventually, England is slated to actually become a Muslim country. Now, how do you think feminism is going to fare when England is a Muslim country?
I think
Ryan, you got to stop letting him railroad this dude.
I'm just asking simple questions.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Just simple questions, guys.
So I could even work with the argument that the birth rate is declining as a result of feminism. That would actually be a good thing because we're having more planned pregnancies and planned families, which leads to better outcomes for both the parents and the child. However, one of the things we know about birth rate is that it's also heavily tied to economics. In fact,
hold on a second. You just made one claim. You said that it's better for the families. You just made one claim. You've made one claim. Let's take it one claim at a time.
Have a double standard.
Children.
No. That's shock. You can't shotgun the points. If you want to say that it's better for the family, demonstrate that for me.
You literally shotgun points all the time. I've had to sit here and wait. So I ask
questions.
Let's go. I do like it. I do like the line of logic. So Mel, if you can do one claim at a time and at least give Jake the opportunity to refute it, that would be helpful. I think for the conversation to move along a little more productively. Thank you.
Okay,
so the first claim that you made there, Mel, was that it's better. These plans demonstrate that for me. How's it better? How's it better for families and better for societies? And how does this actually tie into feminism? Because as we know that what's happening around the United States is that there's higher divorce rates, there's more children outside of wedlock, and all these sorts of things. So demonstrate for me how that's better.
So he's making like 3 different points.
So
no, I'm making a counterpoint.
Do you want to hear about how it's better for the parent or the child? Because there's 2 ways to answer that.
No, I want to hear about how it's better for society as a whole. I don't care what makes people happy.
So
I don't care about their emotional
society
state.
When children grow into adulthood with less crime rates, better education, better nutrition, better social conditioning, and living in a household that can afford them. And that is what we see with better planned families and when we allow things like abortion.
True.
When you allow, so it's better for the children when you allow things like abortion for them to not even be born in the first place.
Well, yeah, because they didn't exist. They didn't exist in the first place.
Well, and also many people who seek abortions, and I think most people who've gotten an abortion are mothers. Like people already have one child. So yeah.
Okay, now you're going to have to demonstrate for me how feminism does that better than, for example, how things used to be when people would meet young and they would have children young and they would stay together and they would not divorce and they would not have children outside of wedlock. You're going to have to demonstrate
for the husband to rape them.
No, so it wasn't.
Feminism,
what are you talking about?
Feminism,
what are you talking about, Ryan?
Marital rape?
How are you going to demonstrate? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. That was assault. That was considered assault back then. No, it wasn't. You're just factually wrong about that. That was considered assault. It just wasn't essay. Anyways,
yeah, no women would be
that
R word. The police station. But anyways, feminism frames abortion as a woman's rights issue because it gives them better health outcomes. For example, being able to get it when their mental health is better, instead of having to have a pregnancy when their mental health isn't as good as it could be.
So you're saying that feminism, I don't care how feminism frames abortion. Abortion is murder. It's the taking of an unborn innocent life. So you can say that and you can say, oh, well, they won't have to raise the baby when they're not doing so mentally well. And tell me, like, what's the standard for that? If I wake up one day and I'm 8 months pregnant and I say, my mental health today, not so good. Let's just get rid of this thing. Is that okay?
The standard is the pregnant person's own concern for their mental health. And if they think that they could endure raising a child with their current mental health state.
Okay, I don't think anyone really decides.
So then the question that I asked,
I don't think anyone actually does the thing you ask.
Ryan, stop trying to save her. Stop trying to save her.
I'm not. I'm making.
If anything, he's giving you more to deal with, which is annoying for me.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so Mel, if I wake up one day, I'm 8 months pregnant, and I say, having a rough day today, mental health is not so good. Can I just get rid of the baby?
I mean, like my personal stance on abortion is yes.
I don't care about your personal stance.
That is not the feminist. No, the feminist stance is usually 6 to 8 weeks.
All right. What is give me the objective feminist stance?
I think the stance is still relies on the idea that you're still having an abortion one way or the other. Like the timeline can come down to different preferences or whatever, but it still allows you to do it nonetheless. And quick shout out to chairman of the board with the Big Ten. All men could band together to take women's rights, and that's proof that men give women rights. Contains two logical fallacies, a mix of a straw man and a false cause. Jake, I think you were kind of alluding to this concept earlier. You're welcome to respond if you want.
Chairman of the board needs to get on the panel because that is the most ridiculous comment. How does which one is it?
Oh, it's me. Hey, how you doing, Jake? I'm a big fan of yours, by the way. I'm really flattered to be on the panel with you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. So how's it a straw man?
Well, so let me explain my reasoning because it's a mixture, right? So it's like saying, and I'll test the logic by changing the scenario a little bit instead of using the extreme of all the men band together to take away the women's rights, and therefore that's proof that women are given rights by men.
How's a hypothetical a straw man? It's a hypothetical question. So how can a hypothetical be a straw man?
If you're going to let me finish.
Go for it.
Yeah. So
you have to do it through my.
I want to hear what Chairman has to say as well.
Hold on, Doc. He's talking.
So
go ahead.
It's like me saying that I burned down your house and save you from it, therefore I save you. Or all the women in a neighborhood get together and wreck your car by hitting it with baseball bats so that they own your car.
It's actually
right?
How is it like that?
Logic. What are you talking about?
Actually, it's more like
the logic used in the argument. It's going to an extreme to prove its position, but it doesn't actually prove anything.
So it's a hypothetical. So it can't be a straw man. Okay, it's a hypothetical, and the hypothetical is actually true if men did band together. And so if you said to me, if I burnt down your house and then saved you from it, it's completely disanalogous to the hypothetical that I made. The hypothetical that I made, which actually happens all around the world, we've seen this in places like Afghanistan, where the men come to power, the Taliban, they say, hey, listen, women, no more school for you. This actually happens.
Shout out to the Taliban.
Right. I'm not going to argue the position that people don't oppress each other. Right. That would be foolish to argue the position that people don't oppress each other. But I'm just speaking on the specific use of that hypothetical as a tool in an argument. I think it's bad faith, and I've seen Andrew Wilson use it a whole bunch of times too, and it just doesn't stand up when you use it in comparisons. Like, and I'm not a feminist, man. You know, I'm not arguing from that position. I just don't like that.
Hey, Chairman.
I also know this
position is being misrepresented by the argument. Whose position is being misrepresented?
The Taliban. The Aussies are going to hate this, but the Taliban is also going to tell you, as for worse or for worse, but they're going to tell you to trust and believe people that are making social and economic choices, that they have a reason for doing that, right? Like, so it's a really different way of thinking.
Anson, so if you're saying it's a straw man, that means it's a misrepresentation of somebody else's point. So whose point is being misrepresented?
The point that the point of the argument which was being had, which was that women get rights from men. That was the point of the hypothetical, was to drive that point home, and that's
okay. Anson.
Yeah.
If I'm straw manning a position, it has to be a position that is made by somebody else.
I can answer.
So if I'm straw manning Radical Coder's position, it's a position that he made. It's an argument that he made that I'm straw manning. So who is making the argument that this hypothetical is straw manning? Because you're saying it's a straw man. Anyone that of somebody's position. Who is that somebody?
Anyone that says women's rights don't come from men. That's
okay. So you're claiming that Jake is straw manning his own position. You're claiming that Jake is straw manning his own position when he's making the argument.
I would say the thing he's straw manning is real quick.
Can we let it? Can we go one at a time, gentlemen? Right now, I think it's Ryan and Adam. Can everybody else kind of butt out for a second? Go ahead, Ryan.
I think the thing that's being strawmanned from my perspective is the feminist perspective, and more importantly, the like what was done by feminists to get the rights. It's not that men just gave them to women like one day. They just felt like they felt like they just decided one day to give women rights. Like women and men fought for a long time, and I mean, Duck was going through a lot of examples at the beginning of this panel about like stories of women who did remarkable things throughout history, fighting for rights. And so you're kind of straw manning the history, like really, you're straw manning the story of feminism, I would say.
Okay, so it's not a straw man of feminism. And it's not a straw man of the history according to feminism, because it is an alternative perspective of history that is opposed to the feminist view. It is not a straw man because
what is alternative history?
No, hold on. It is not a straw man of history because it is opposed.
No, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to hold you accountable for this. Absolutely not. If you come and come up with 10 people and you tell us alternative history exists, that's nonsense.
Okay. Orca speaks with the big 5, says, let's go, Jake. Wait, which channel am I on again? You must be watching on both ends. Made by Jim Bob coming in with a big 10 says, Ryan, if more males identify as women and dominate every field, is that still feminism?
Absolutely.
That's definitely not happening by any like more males is there's like 100 trans athletes
that's a conditional question, Ryan. That's a hypothetical. He's not saying it is happening. He's saying if
but it's an insane hypothetical. I don't know.
No, it's saying if it happened.
I think by the time if that happened, then like the way that we got to that point would have involved so much restructuring of like sporting categories. Like I think the question would be kind of absurd by that point.
It would be a crazy
we'll see what happens.
2025. Crazy question in
2025. Hold on. So it's a yes or no question. If it did happen, would it be feminism or not?
And what I'm commenting on
I can answer that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So feminism fights for equality
Ryan. I understand your need to save your buddy here, but I want Ryan to answer the question because it goes to Ryan.
Hold on, Adam. Mel, you were saying something, please.
So it would still be feminism because feminism fights for equality of the sexes, and you could still have equality of the sexes. The word dominate there, I don't think we would allow domination anymore. So if they're truly dominating, then sure, that's something that would eliminate it. But assuming that like it's just identifying as women and there's lots of women in every field, well, okay, yeah, if women are a majority, that's not necessarily not feminism.
Well, okay, and I see the argument being made here. So if men put on skirts, okay, and went in and said, I'm a woman, hear me roar, I want job, I take job, and now women are inherently booted out of the workforce because these men went in and identified as women. So when it comes to HR is satisfied because, we've got X amount of women and men because these dudes identify as women. Essentially that's like kind of going against the grain there. I don't think I think it goes against the concept of feminism. So it actually harms women more than helps. So this is where I would appeal to men to come in and actually get this shit out of there, because now real women are being put down as second-class citizens yet again.
So trans women are taking women out of HR?
What I'm saying is if men put on a skirt, okay, this whole panel, let's just say you all decide today you're going to put on a skirt and we're all going to go apply for the same job, right? And HR has a like the DEI diversity quota hiring, right? And they say, well, we need X amount of women to satisfy this quota to make us be whatever. I can easily get booted out just because a dude comes in, puts on a skirt, and says he identifies as a woman. So it's like that's a sneak attack there.
Wouldn't if you're going to have some sort of quota system, like the point of those kinds of quotas is to make sure that the makeup of that group reflects the makeup of society. So like some percentage of society are trans people. So that quota could include some amount of trans people, some amount of cisgender people, and then
no, you're misunderstanding.
See, I actually agree with Ryan on something here. I do not believe that we should offer undue benefits to the 1%. I think the 1% are overprivileged in society, and in this case, when I say the 1%, I mean trans people, because they're about 1% of the population. And in some cases, we're talking about 0.1%, which would, Ryan also doesn't believe that we should give undue benefits to just 1% of the population. You can just
facing higher rates of violence a privilege?
I don't think so.
What?
What privileges are trans people getting?
So privileges, well.
Before we get on a tangent, can I chime in really quick before we get far away from the analogy?
Are you saying a trans woman is not?
Hold on. Stop. Effigy, is that?
Yeah, that was me.
We got some background.
No. So who's got the? Who's trying to talk?
Mr. What?
Whoever's got their mic open while they're talking.
I'm gonna mute you, Mr.
Really quickly, before we get too far away from it, this dumb analogy that we keep hearing: if all men band together, they could take away all the rights. Therefore, they have the ability. By the exact same logic, if all women band together, could they not end the species? Could they just decide that I'm not having babies anymore?
I question.
And by your logic, then
sure they could. Let me ask the question to you. Then, is that what's happening? Are women subconsciously doing that in some weird way?
I'm just saying, by the logic of their example, if a group bands together and has the ability to do something, they should be the arbiters over that. So if women can band together and end the species by not allowing babies to come from them, shouldn't they be the ones who, by your own logic, are the ones who get to decide who comes into this world or not?
No, they can't do that. They can't do that.
Oh, is it you, Jake?
Yeah, I'll respond to this.
Oh, hold on. Your mic sounds like crap. What happened?
It's doing to our ears what you're about to say you would do to women if they tried to stop having kids.
Yes, that's why in Muslim countries, all these women, they band together, guys, so they can break apart the patriarchy. What is this BS, man? A woman, if you
women and men who don't want to see that.
Let me pose.
Better.
Yes, thank God. Go ahead, Jake.
Cool.
Before.
So it wasn't actually by our own logic, because with our own logic, these things have actually happened. So can you tell me where that's happened ever, that women have decided to end the species?
No, that was our question to you earlier.
Yeah,
because there's been no time in history where all men ever have banded together.
It's a hypothetical.
Men have banded together and taken away the rights of women. That has happened. It's still happening today. So where has it happened, what you're saying, that women band together and decide to end the species?
It's a hypothetical.
It was a hypothetical, right? Yeah.
Well, where's it happened?
That's not.
But there's no place ever where men in the entire world have banded together and all agreed on the same thing. It wouldn't happen here. You couldn't have it in the United States have all men band together.
This is actually a straw man. So effigy is actually straw manning the position.
It makes no sense.
Hold on. I think Jake, the question was posed as a hypothetical. So nobody's saying it has happened, but we're saying, what if women did band together and say, like, we're not going to have babies anymore, fuck society, whatever. And then I think I did ask the question, is that what's going on now? Like, women are waiting, or they're choosing not to have children, or you have the abortions, you have the birth control, you have all these sorts of different things. So in some weird subconscious way, have they decided to do that now?
No, they haven't. And they're not going to, and they never could, because even if they did decide that they would try and do that, what men would do is they would band together and they would enslave those women and they would impregnate those women.
Ooh.
Like I said.
Cringy.
I mean, for real, what's the counter
kind
argument?
of creepy.
So, also, effigy, I have to point out how you were actually engaging in a straw man. So the claim isn't all men, it is men. You only need a small number of men in order to overthrow a government. Jake repeatedly used the example of the Taliban. The Taliban was not all of the men in Afghanistan. It was an organized minority of men who were able to come together, form a militia,
maybe his specific version of this hypothetical, but the hypothetical
US
that's constantly used in this manosphere is the larger all men version. So maybe I was wrong in this instance. Maybe you're right. So the hypothetical is usually, what if all men decided to do this to all women? And the logic I was pointing to was by you saying that all men can do this, they should be the arbiters of whether or not women should have that. By that logic, if all women can band together and end the species by the fact that they are the baby factories, well, shouldn't, by your logic, they then be the arbiters of whether or not they give birth or not, who comes into the world and lives or dies in that sense?
Well, okay, so effigy, I can admit that there might be some people who do a very unsophisticated form of this argument, but the majority of the time this argument is made, there's never an ought claim attached. It is merely a descriptive fact of how rights operate in the real world. And the claim the claim is not that that this makes it so that this ought to work like this. The claim is that this is how it works descriptively, and this is how it's worked repeatedly.
How was what I said not descriptively? If you get a woman pregnant and she doesn't want to have your baby, she gets an abortion.
Gentlemen, didn't this kind of happen in, I think it was China, where like the 403B thing happened, and now they're like practically paying them South Korea. Thank you. So I guess in essence, it kind of did happen to some degree. I don't know how they made out with it, but Robert Demita.
No, it was a small social movement. It was a small social movement, and they could never. Yeah, sorry, go on, Sarah.
Sorry. Robert Tamita with the Big 10. Appreciate the stream, Sarah. You rule. Shout out to you, Robert Tamita. And I owe you a wrench on this side, Robert. Orca Speaks with the Big 5. Based Australian, as if that's actually a play. Poor Jake. They hit you every time. Okay, go ahead, Jake. I apologize.
It's true, though. They're actually right about that. So, yeah, no, it was a small social movement. I think it was a 3B movement or whatever it was in South Korea
4B.
where women were sort of going 4B, going, it was like kind of like the opposite to MGTOW. It was like women going their own way. So, yeah, it was a small social movement, but no, the reason why their birth rate is so low over there is not because of that. It's because of like many other different factors, including like urbanization and yeah, it's not because of that 4B movement, but it's actually just not possible, because if they got together and they said collectively, we are going to just end the species, men would just say, no, you're not, sweetheart.
Well, and the other thing, and this is actually a point I really wanted to bring up with Korea, but I was in the back coping so hard. Ryan, you were talking about providing social benefits. One of the specific social benefits you talked about, and you brought up a bunch, was maternity leave. South Korea has very, very good maternity leave policies. They even have paternity leave. It has not helped. They were implemented since at least 2016, and it's like a year of maternity leave. And since 2016, the birth rate has continued to drop.
So I'm not saying there are other factors. So what I would be curious at is to look at, like, comparatively, are women and men who have access to maternity and paternity leave, like if they're comparative, like the same, like otherwise the same, like are they more or less likely to have children? And I my instinct.
He just gave you the stats.
More likely.
Isn't it pretty?
He just gave you the reason.
He told me.
Well,
he actually told me that in the country the birth rates are still low, but he didn't give me the specific thing I'm referring to, right?
The countries
I don't have those specific stats on, like, the specific stats you're referring to, because that's like a really, really particular and to be frank, I can't read South
You would identify whether or not that policy is working for your goal, right?
Question, gentlemen, and maybe Jake and Ryan, maybe you can dive into this one. If the economy were to per se do better to the point where you don't necessarily have to have two incomes to support a household, because I feel like that's, in terms of the middle class, it is necessary to a degree. If the economy suddenly did magically better, do you think that women would then return back home because there's no need for them to work, or maybe not have the ambition to do it, or to
may I point something out?
No.
The most common form of feminism, or at least the most popular, is choice feminism, which is actually kind of interesting, because I would argue, yes, if you did that, you would actually see more women able to embrace the trad lifestyle. But it's an important point to make.
No.
That you're preventing it so long as as we're not paying people enough, like a livable wage, so that way one person can support an entire household to begin with, and that forces women to work, and they can't embrace the trad lifestyle.
Look, you can look at the evidence of where in the world the birth rates haven't collapsed and see that it's not at all tied to economics, right? That's ridiculous. If you look at the actual data in the places where in the world where women are still having lots of children, they're not rich people. They're not people with means, right? So the collapsing birth rate is a disease of birth control, though, Anson. It's a disease of the rich and not a disease of the poor.
But in third world countries, it's more of an issue of affording birth control and stuff like that. When
you're pointing out exactly why the birth rate collapsed is because all of these people have access to prevent pregnancy, whereas all throughout human history that didn't happen. And then suddenly, when women had access to be able to decide whether or not to have children, birth rates slowly started to decline, and it created an entirely different culture that hadn't existed previously in human history.
But Anson, when you look across countries that have like the top 15% GDP type countries, it's the ones that have higher GDP that actually have more children. It's the sort of thing, like in a third world country, the dynamics are okay.
You got it backwards.
That's not the case. This guy's just wrong. That's not the case. It's actually the countries with the lowest GDP. You go to places like Africa,
right?
In countries like Chad and places like this. You have people with 8
let him finish, Mel.
Yeah,
but he's doing a straw person.
Okay, but I want to hear him finish, at least.
Brother, relax. So yeah, no, that's not the case. The highest birth rates in the world are in the Arab countries and in the African countries. Some of them are up to like 6 to 8 birth rates. And as countries become more urbanized and as countries become more liberal, then this is when they start to drop their birth rates. So to the question that Sarah's asking, if something magically happened with the economy, well, we have been getting richer. We have more nice shit. We have iPhones. We have MacBook Pros. But we're having less and less babies. And this is because people
Mel,
just
weren't you talking about first world countries comparing like first world countries? Or no?
Well, and Jake, I don't know if it's necessary. That's like material things. I don't know if that necessarily represents the strength of the economy, right? Like we can still buy stuff on credit in America, right? Just because
America has a massively strong economy. America is the strongest economy in the world.
I wouldn't agree with that either.
I mean,
America has the biggest military in the world. They absolutely destroy. I mean, you may not. If you look at the health of economy, there's a lot of different variables. So you could say that America doesn't have the healthiest economy. Fair enough, but America has the biggest military in the world by far. They are the biggest consumer market in the entire world. I mean, America is the U.S. dollar is the global reserve currency. There's really no argument that America is. Well, I mean, you have to prove that. You could make the argument that the USA is being taken over.
China could easily outpace America if America was into recession because they have a higher population.
So you're saying that population begets strength? Is that what you're saying?
When you have more people in a market, there's automatically more demand. Yes.
So there, you've just refuted your own feminist argument, by the way.
Jake, so you're not American, so I'm going to help you out a little bit. You too, Furby, you're Canadian. So in the last 50 years, a dollar has devalued to the point where it's worth 5 cents what it was 50 years ago, right? All of the generational wealth that my family had over generation was stolen through an inflation tax that people don't even pay attention to. Our economy is so ridiculously, like, it's a giant bubble, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a good economy. And so I just made an argument for why what you said is wrong, right? It's a house of cards.
But the entire world is on a fiat currency, though, right?
I know.
The entire world is on fiat currency. So inflation is actually not just a specifically American problem. Inflation is worldwide.
Yeah, this is an issue of disenfranchising yourself from the gold. It's not an issue of the of the dollar, the petrodollar, or the American dollar being weak. The American dollar is
inflation is also a symptom.
The American dollar is so strong; it still siphons wealth right now from other countries in its weak inflationary position right now. It's
the global reserve currency. Yeah, exactly right. And if it were to lose its position as the global reserve currency, then you couldn't say this about it. Like if the Chinese yuan was to take over as the global reserve currency, then yeah, sure, America wouldn't be the strongest economy. But right now they still are. And having the US dollar as the global reserve currency gives you an incredible amount of leverage all around the world, which is why they can impose sanctions on Iran, why they can impose sanctions on Russia and all of these different places. So America has the strongest hand, 100%.